Hi, it's David Pylon of Pylon Arts and Entertainment, here again to do another review. This time I wanted to do a quote-unquote book review, and I'll explain in a second why I put that in quotation marks, of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. I picked up a copy from Friends of the Library book sale. Just started reading that. And it's not going to be a full review because I'm not finished yet. I just went through the first few chapters and I'm still working on it. I'm still going to read it. I'm still going to finish it. But I had some thoughts on that. I'm not really going to talk that much about the book directly, and that's why I said I was going to explain why I'm putting the quotation marks in there. I'm going to kind of talk around the book. I might catch some flack for this one, but I want to talk a little bit about gender dynamic, I guess, and relationships and all of that. Because when you look at, this book was written in 1992, so about 30 years ago, and I'm one of those people caught in a time warp of feeling like 30 years ago should be like 1980 or 1979 or something, and not 1991. But it seems like that shouldn't be that long of a time, and yet it seems in a lot of ways a lot has changed just over that time period. And I feel like that applies to gender and relationships and all that as well, because at the core of this book is a concept that I feel personally should not be controversial, and yet it has, or it seems to have become as such, is the idea that men and women are different, which of course we should just accept that as true, that they are, because if there is no sex difference whatsoever, then sex just shouldn't exist. But somehow it has become controversial, the idea that men and women aren't the same as each other. But at the same time, there's always this kind of underlying question of how much of that is biological and how much of it is cultural and sociological and so on and so forth. And I think the differences we're seeing in just a short time of like 30 years are kind of illustrating that point. Because if you listen to a lot of men's advice on like dating relationships and stuff like that, which I do, a lot of them, like Marnie Kinrys with the Ask Women What Women Want podcast, and the Wing Girl Method is the dating coach that I went through a few years ago, and Tucker Max, known for his kind of douchey humor. His book, The Mating Game, I believe it's called, or maybe that was the name of the podcast, I can't remember. Mate is the name of the book, Mating Game is the name of the podcast, that's it. They all have this similar concept that they talk about, of this idea that the gender roles have actually reversed, which is itself, again, another controversial idea to discuss, basically saying, well, despite all this talk of like the pay gap and all that, statistically among younger Americans, women are more likely actually to be earning more. It's actually the opposite. They're more likely to be more college educated, so on and so forth. And so a lot of the traditional ideas of basically men being quote-unquote above women in some way no longer applies. It's more likely it's the other way around. And the basic argument that they bring up is these experts, these like quote-unquote sexperts and men's dating gurus and all these people, they argue the gender roles are reversed, but that we are still biologically wired to go by the old standards, and so the majority of our current problems are stemming from those two things are not lining up with each other. So we're expecting for traditional gender roles, but we don't have them, is basically what their underlying argument is. And so like that plays out in different ways, like how there were some articles some time ago about all these different single women out there who are highly educated, professional businesswomen, successful, they got money and all this stuff, and they're just like, I can't find men because the number of men who are basically like smarter and older and richer and more successful and so on and so forth than they are, is a very small dating pool, and they're just like refusing to date all the quote-unquote uneducated and blue-collar men out there who are working like kind of working-class jobs. They just have no interest in them. They're looking for these other successful professional business types as they are, and just not finding them, or finding that a lot of those guys are basically players. It's called I call it hypergamy. I don't know if it's hypergamy or hypergamy. Being hypergamous is the opposite of being monogamous. It means dating and sleeping with a lot of different people. And so you have all these different women out here who are attracted to a very small pool of highly attractive and highly successful men who are themselves dating and sleeping around with lots of different women. And so neither sex is basically getting what they want out of their relationships or out of dating. And so like an issue like that seems to me like it's more just a modern issue that has to do with where we're at right now, which has been a significant change from where we were even 30 years ago. That's no longer the same dynamic. Another thing is, like, still hear something stereotypical. You used to always hear about the idea of, men always wanting sex, and then the woman not wanting to, or whatever. And now you hear a lot more about the opposite has become true. That's more frequently women who are complaining their partners don't want to sleep with them, which there's some different underlying reasons as to why that is. But it's become more frequent that the man is just disinterested from having sex with his partner, and she's complaining that she's like sexually frustrated because of that. It's like different things like that have changed, I feel, and that's kind of what so far when I've been reading Men Are From Mars, Women From Venus, that so far has been what my big issue has been, is just kind of looking through it and feeling like I'm almost back in time, because I'll read, there's something here on the flap I thought was interesting. I was just looking at it. There's a quote. It is rare to find a non-fiction book that is a page-turner, but John Gray has written one. Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus replaces worn-out theories with fresh awareness, appropriate for our times. Susan Page, author of If I'm So Wonderful, Why Am I Still Single? So I feel like we need to go back and rewrite those rules and guidelines again. That society has changed again in just that short amount of time. And I'm only really familiar with the one theory and explanation as to why that is, as far as the whole idea of the roles have reversed, but we're still wired the old way, and so both sexes are suffering from that because we haven't learned how to adapt, is basically what the current main argument is. And so a lot of what I'm reading in that book so far, taken within that context, taken within the context of my own personal experiences and observations, which tend to match up with that idea. And a lot of the relationships I've looked at around me, I've heard a lot of the same problems of basically like the guy's broke and sitting on the couch and the woman's working and she's wanting sex and he's not, and so on and so forth. It's kind of like the more norm I believe now than it was then, even though that's like anecdotal evidence. But that's just been my main issue with the book so far. I'm gonna continue reading it and see if my thoughts and feelings change on that or not. It's just the idea that I'm not sure that it has as much relevancy now as it might have been, within just that short amount of time. But that's basically all I had to say. Thank you for watching, and I hope you'll tune in next time.